This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
Good evening, everyone. Tasmania's 48th Parliament will rise for the final time tonight before Tasmania heads to the polls in March. The state government was today spruiking its achievements over the past 4 years as the opposition highlighted transparency issues within the Liberal team. We now cross live to our state political reporter, Jacqueline Robson. Good evening, Jack. How important was the last sitting day for the year?
Well, Joe, it was a rowdy but fairly predictable question time as the government spruiked its achievements over the past 4 years. The opposition was running a transparency theme, pointing to a number of reports the government is still refusing to release. But it was actually a comment from the Greens leader, Cassie O'Connor, that caused the biggest blow. Let's take a look at how the day unfolded.
Face the camera.
Capturing a moment.
And smile.
As the 48th Parliament sat for the final time, the government using the opportunity to spruik its achievements over the past 4 years.
We have passed laws to back our competitive strengths in areas like tourism, aquaculture, agriculture, forestry and mining. And there are more jobs, Mr Speaker. 10,000 more jobs created under the Hodgman Liberal government.
A last-ditch effort for the opposition to rock the boat, highlighting a lack of transparency, with a number of reports remaining under Liberal government wraps.
Because your government is based on secrecy, deception and an absolute lack of integrity.
But it was the Greens revealing a bombshell amid the Premier's promise not to entertain the thought of a power-sharing government in the event of a hung Parliament next year.
I said I would do no deals with the Greens and I didn't. I kept my word.
A ride in the Liberal campaign truck, not enough to shake the revelations the then opposition leader Will Hodgman called Greens leader Nick McKim following the hung Parliament of 2010.
He indicated during that call that he would be interested in discussing whether or not there was anything that we could agree to. It was a long and somewhat rambling call.
It's been reported that I spoke with Nick McKim and David Bartlett post-election.
The Premier today ruling out any sort of informal supply arrangement with the Greens or other minority parties in the event of a hung Parliament, a familiar promise made by Ray Groom in 1996, resigning to allow the Liberals a supply arrangement under Tony Rundle.
Will Hodgman's only really leaving himself with two choices here. One, he will have to resign after the election to preserve his personal integrity, or second, he'll have to go back on his word.
The opposition also standing by its promise of no power-sharing government.
If we don't win majority government, which we are campaigning for, the first person who's going to be asked that question is Will Hodgman. Everything stems then from his decision. Everything stems from whether or not he is prepared to do a deal.
We'll cross that bridge if and when we get to it, and we certainly won't model ourselves on governments of the last century. We are a government for the future.
A future government, but will it have a workable majority? Now, it was also an emotional day in Parliament as 3 sitting members gave their final speech to Parliament. So the former Premier, Lara Giddings, her Labor colleague, David Llewellyn, and outgoing Liberal, Matthew Groom, all gave valedictory speeches. And so when we return next year for Parliament, it won't be the same sitting members. How that Parliament will shape up will be in the hands of the Tasmanian people. Joe.
Yes, it certainly will be. Thank you very much for that report. Jacqueline Robson joining us there. Well, it's been a sad day for many Tasmanian Murray Goulburn workers, with the company shutting down its Edith Creek milk processing plant. Staff were told of the closure in May, and only around 30 of the 120 workers remained on site for the official last day. Our reporter Monika Dadson joins us now from Edith Creek. Monika, how are the workers feeling?
Well, Joe, there were mixed emotions out here today. There were tears, hugs and also a lot of laughs. Yesterday it was announced Dutch Mill, which is a Thailand-based milk processing company, is purchasing the site. So that's given many workers hope they may have jobs to come back to. It's pretty quiet out here now. We caught up with some workers and locals earlier today. They're now confident about the future. An emotional end to a milk processing era. Today, Murray Goulburn closed the doors to its Edith Creek site for the last time, forcing 120 staff out of work. Kathy Wallace was one of the longest-serving staff members. She started working at the factory 20 years ago, when the site was then owned by Classic Foods.
I thought I'd retire here, but it's not going to happen. Never mind. It's okay. I was a bit upset earlier, but I think I'm used to the idea now.
Murray Goulburn took over the plant 11 years ago. Staff say their colleagues have become family.
You work closely side by side, the same people every day, so you do get to know them quite well. And of course we've been at the factory for a long time, so it's like a second home.
Yesterday's 11th hour sale announcement came as a surprise to many workers. For some it was too late.
I'm actually leaving the state, which is going to be sad in itself, so I won't be coming back, but I certainly hope that other people will.
We have really good friends out there that have, had to maybe sell houses and kind of, think about moving away.
But for others, it's welcome news heading into the festive season, with around 30 factory workers still looking for a job. The union is pushing for the new owner to employ Murray Goulburn staff first and match current wages and conditions.
6 months ago this was going to be a place that was going to be mothballed, and it's a far better outcome, it's good for the community.
The Mayor adding a new processor setting up is positive for farmers. Dutch Mill currently owns 6 dairy properties in the region and will be on the hunt for more milk.
It should mean that there's more competitive edge for farmers, so that should be positive as well.
The sale is expected to be finalised early next year, with the site to reopen soon after. But until then, this is the busiest we'll see Edith Creek for a little while.
It's going to be hard, but, we'll move on. More adventures to come.
Monica Dadson, Southern Cross News.
Police are investigating the cause of a fatal crash on Hobart's eastern shore. The single vehicle crash was reported on Acton Road at Acton Park shortly after 1 o'clock this afternoon. The driver was transported to hospital in a critical condition but later died. Unions claim safety is being put at risk by the use of ageing equipment in the Tasmania Fire Service. They've raised concerns about the use of a 30-year-old fire truck, which firefighters say has suffered mechanical issues and delayed responses to call-outs.
These are really specialised vehicles, and whether or not they can get somewhere in time or get somewhere at all has a clear impact on the community's safety. A lot can happen in a few minutes when you're responding to an emergency.
The Tasmanian Fire Service has never been as well resourced as it is under this government. Never been. And there will be trucks rolling out, and the TFS have the funds to maintain their equipment as they should.
The Fire Service says it has contingency plans if a pumper requires repairs, and its fleet replacement service incorporates heavy pumpers. A former Auditor-General of Tasmania, Mike Blake, has been appointed the new chair of TasTAFE. Mr Blake is expected to start the position early next year. In a statement, Education Minister Jeremy Rockcliffe says he brings substantial audit and financial experience. Professor and Principal of UTAS, Janelle Allison, will also join the board, along with the new TasTAFE CEO, Jenny Dodd. The changes have been made following an investigation by the Integrity Commission, which found a serious lack of transparency within the selection process. As Tasmania's visitor numbers boom, so too is the wine tourism sector. Close to 300,000 tourists are estimated to have visited a local wine cellar in the last year, with those numbers predicted to continue rising.
The rolling hills at Puddle Duck Vineyard are bursting with life, signs of a bumper crop with flowering already starting.
Got a beautiful crop on, that's for sure. Yeah.
They'll need all those extra grapes to keep up with demand as visitor numbers are booming.
See if you like the rest.
Puddle Duck operates a cellar door on site in the Coal River Valley. In the last 3 years, the number of people coming through has doubled.
When we first opened our cellar door about 10 years ago, it was just literally a part-time job for one of us. And fast forward 10 years into the business and suddenly we've got a full-time equivalent of 8 staff.
The latest figures showing around 285,000 interstate and international visitors went to Accelerator during their trip to Tasmania.
Over the past 3 years, it's been over 20% growth each year on year. So really, really significant. It's growing more quickly than the rate of overall visitation to Tasmania.
To help guide tourists around the state, Wine Tasmania today released its 2018 Wine Trails Around Tasmania guide.
We divide that into the south, the east, the north and the northwest, and that keeps it nice and simple. And we've got about 70 cellar doors listed in this year's guide.
Regions like the Coal River Valley teaming up to give visitors a good experience.
I always sort of think of the Tassie wine industry as a bit of a family, and we're always keen to tell people where the next vineyard is, whether they're travelling north or south.
Sharing fruits of an industry in bloom. Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
And following the royal wedding, the couple has been invited to Tasmania. Sapphire Freycinet has been singled out as a honeymoon option by Tourism Australia. The Federal Tourism Minister asked the agency to come up with a possible itinerary which includes Tasmania, Queensland and the Northern Territory. The invitation is out there as the royal couple considers their honeymoon options. Richie Porte has spoken about his resolve to conquer the Tour de France after a high-speed crash ended this year's campaign. The Tassie cycling legend is taking time out after a huge season, which included a breakthrough win in the Tour Down Under.
Richie Porte wears his heart on his sleeve and his pride around his neck, a small tribute to Tassie which gives him an extra gear.
People know me as the Tasmanian, not an Australian, so it's kind of cool.
The 32-year-old is back home after a season of extremes. It started with elation, a maiden Tour Down Under title.
Surely he's going to give us the two-handed salute. Yes, he is.
He tasted sweet success again in the Tour de Romandie before a second placing in the Critérium de Dauphiné. A perfect warm-up to the pinnacle of pro cycling, only to be spoiled by a cold-hearted twist of fate.
So he's had a crash and Porte is down. That's a horrible crash for Richie Porte.
And it's the end of his Tour de France.
1 second, everything's good, and then the next thing I was picking between hitting a grass verge or a mountain.
He was confined to a hospital bed.
To end up in an ambulance is never good, but all things considered, I think I got off quite lightly.
But resilience is something Richie Porte proves time and time again. He says that crash is now a stimulus to perform. Next year's schedule will be much the same as 2017, although Porte will be watching long-time rival Chris Froome very closely. After announcing today he will target both the Tour de France and the Giro d'Italia, a double which will put a lot of stress on the reigning Tour champion.
Chris Froome, he's a good friend, but of course I'd love to try and beat him next year. He's won the race 4 times. It's not going to be easy, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
Porte returns to Europe next week for training with Team BMC. Tom Johnson, Southern Cross News.
In a first for the state, Tasmania Zoo has welcomed 3 rare African wildcats. The Servals, 2 brothers and a sister, are settling into their new home after arriving late last week.
They're actually the second fastest of all cats. They can reach speeds of up to 80 kilometres an hour, which is their second fastest to the cheetah. They've got really long legs. They've got the longest legs and the largest ears of any cat species.
The slender and agile cat is one of Africa's most successful hunters. Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance news with thanks to TasPlan, your local super fund. The Australian share market has closed lower after the shock announcement of a royal commission into the finance industry, with banks and insurers hardest hit even after a late recovery. The ASX 200 index has dropped by 41.2 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 75.89 US cents and 63.96 euro cents.
Rower Sarah Hoare and lawn bowler Rebecca Van Ash have been rewarded for stellar years of competition by being named Joint Tasmanian Athletes of the Year in Hobart overnight, both beating out a world-class group of finalists to claim the honour, including cyclists Richie Porte and Amy Cure.
For the ambitious rower, 2017 has seen just reward for years of hard work, with Hoare and her Cox's 4 crew claiming gold at the World Rowing Championships, along with 2 other World Rowing Cup titles throughout the year to remain undefeated. but she says last night's award was as much a shock as it was an honour.
I was reading the biographies of all the other finalists and I was thinking, oh, these people are amazing, you know. Didn't really put myself in their class, but so it was quite surprising and amazing to have won.
Hoare sharing the honour with Rebecca Van Ash after the three-time world champion lawn bowler dominated the sport for another year. Van Ash sending her gratitude from abroad as her and Hoare prepare for more success in 2018.
Be another World Championships for rowing and one every year until 2020, and I'm hope that I get back into that same boat, the women's four, and have exactly the same result, World Championship gold, and keep building towards Tokyo.
The two beating out cyclists Amy Cure and Richie Port, along with swimmer Ariane Titmus and runner Dion Kenzie. The night also seeing two new inductees into the Tasmanian Sporting Hall of Fame, with five-time Olympic rower and triple Olympic medalist Anthony Edwards the first.
It is nice to go back and reflect and realise, I suppose, what you achieved, and something like this makes you realise that it was pretty significant, and yeah, I am very proud of it.
Then adding to an incredible list of achievements, including holding the record for most Test centuries, former Australian captain Ricky Ponting reflected on his career, which began when he was selected to play for the Mowbray senior side as a teenager.
I probably took the best catch I've ever taken in my life in that game, and that's the truth. I was a 13-year-old fielding at backward point, ended up, I dived tight to my right and took an absolute screamer. I'm still not sure how I did it.
Meantime, the Tasmanian Tigers will take a mostly unchanged lineup into their next Sheffield Shield clash against New South Wales at Blunston Arena starting Sunday morning, with Jackson Bird the only out for the side, which includes George Bailey, Alex Doolan, Sam Rainbird and Matthew Wade. The Tigers claimed their first Shield win of the season against South Australia last week. AFL Tasmania is exploring a new partnership which would see more young Tasmanian footballers given an opportunity to play VFL football in 2018. It comes off the back of the latest participation statistics, with the number of Tasmanians playing the sport now at an all-time high. Cagey on the details until it becomes official. Ald says the new partnership should mean nothing but good things for our aspiring talent. Currently hashing out the details with North Melbourne, with an announcement to follow in the coming weeks. The initiative is designed to award more Tasmanian players an opportunity to shine in front of AFL talent scouts in the Kangaroos VFL side.
And we feel that will actually put a solution in place that people can explore their aspirations in the AFL without needing to leave the state.
The other big announcement to come, the change to the starting date of the 2018 TSL fixture to mid-March, which will see the State League Grand Final played 2 weeks prior to the AFL's big day.
So then we can have our Tasmanian Footy Awards on the week prior to the AFL Grand Final, and Tassie footy season's finished before we go and watch the main game in the elite comp.
The latest national participation statistics showing a 3.8% growth in the sport here at home, bolstered by an almost 40% rise in female participation. But Ald says challenges still lay ahead.
We're completely aware that there are community football clubs out there that on a weekly basis find it a challenge to put teams on the park, and that's why we committed to going back to where our recruitment heartland is in Auskick and schools.
Meantime, after falling painfully short of NPL success in previous years, the Hobart Zebras may finally have the key to taking the next step in 2018, with former star Olympia Warriors striker Jakob Sklenar signing on to play for the club next season.
Having Matty Sanders and Jakob together now makes it an interesting season for 2018. Throw in Hooksley in, a big Hoogie in there, and I think the other clubs have a bit of fun marking all three of them. It'll be interesting.
Sklenar says he had several offers from other Tasmanian and interstate clubs, but went with the Zebras to further his long-term coaching ambitions after being offered the opportunity to get involved with the club's academy program.
It might be a good time to start coaching on some level and gaining new experience even as a coach, and still be able to play active football.
The Czech striker is coming off an impressive season for the Warriors, which saw him clinch the 2017 Golden Boot Award. The country's best anglers have cast their lines in Tasmania for the National Fly Fishing Championships. The event is a major qualifying stage for the international titles, which is being held here in Tasmania in 2019.
60 anglers cast their lines on the opening day of competition. Brown and rainbow trout the catch of the day. Competitors made their way across 3 lakes and 2 rivers, including here on the Mersey.
We've got a fair bit of blue sky, but it's clouding over, and trout generally
don't like bright skies, they don't have sunglasses, so they tend to hide away.
This is the most important competition for anglers ahead of the international titles in 2019. Qualifiers will be chosen based on their performances here.
It's the Olympics of fly fishing, this championship, and then in 2019 we're looking at possibly 30 different countries coming here.
A marketing expert was on hand to see how tourism can piggyback off that global drawcard. He says there is huge untapped potential to attract more recreational anglers.
We've got very, very easy access to rivers. We've got wonderful lagoons and lakes, and obviously most importantly one of the purest strain of brown trout in the world.
On the water today, anglers reported plenty of bites.
And on the meander, I think they had close to 50 fish for the anglers there this morning, so on the biggest around about £3.
Competition continues until Saturday. Tom Johnson, Southern Cross News.
Good evening. Nice and warm today, wasn't it? Hobart 33, Launceston 30, Burnie 23 and Devonport 24 degrees. In the southeast, temperatures up to 15 degrees above average as we conclude our warmest November in most of our memories. Not that my memory goes that far back anymore anyway. Strahan Grove and Campania 33, Bushy Park, Ouse and Cape Bruni 31, Flinders Island and Fingal 30 degrees, Lyre, Weenie, St Helens and Friendly Beaches 26 and King Island 25. There is a large body of middle and high level cloud with active thunderstorms just west of Tasmania. Now that's linked to a trough and cold front that reaches right back to Western Australia. Thunderstorms are also over Central Australia and off the east coast of Queensland. We also have tropical cyclone Dahlia near Christmas Island. Closer in, mainly high-level cloud over the state today with middle-level convective cloud developing over the west. Tomorrow the cold front crosses, putting an end to our delightful weather. A trough extends over Central Australia. A high enters the bite from the west. The moderate northerly winds will give way to a south-southeasterly change tomorrow at 20 to 30 knots, and all of a sudden we have a flood watch that's been issued for the North Esk, the South Esk and the Huon catchments. Strong wind warning for waters between Wineglass Bay and Stanley. Here it is for tomorrow. Rain and a possible storm for nearly everybody. Hobart 23, 22 for Huonville, Campania 25 degrees. Rain and a possible storm for Launceston 25, 20 for Devonport and 22 for Georgetown. Rain and a possible storm for Burnie, 20, 20 for Strahan, same forecast for Wynyard and 20 degrees. And is it a clean sweep? It is, same forecast for everywhere tomorrow, 27 for St Helens, Swansea 26 and Port Arthur 22. UV still very high to extreme. On Saturday, rain over the east with heavy falls expected with showers for the rest of the state. Rain again on Sunday with the winds easing and a cloudy day on Monday with a shower or two mostly over the east again. Sunny and 29 in Perth tomorrow. Morning rain for Adelaide with a possible storm. Heavy thundery rain for Melbourne and 26 degrees. Wet weather for all the other centres as well with a storm thrown in for Canberra, Alice Springs and Darwin.
Well, that's all from the team for now. Have a great evening. We'll see you a bit later with updates. Bye-bye.